Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this very, very special edition. Ladies and gentlemen, real money online gaming. Now, everybody has different perceptions about it. Is one the same as the other? Is something like an online betting or an odds or nefarious activities like the Mahadev betting app? Is it the same as something like fantasy sports where you choose your own team? The argument between game of skill versus game of chance, and the more important aspect of how can this be regulated? Can there be a separation and an identification, and can there be certain level of regulation? So between the policymakers and the entrepreneurs who have been bunched up with some nefarious elements, there is a huge argument that is building. Now, the attempt in this very special broadcast is to get erudite minds who have not only pitched for a certain level of code of ethics or gaming regulations or self-regulation, but also perhaps how there can be a proper policy framework that allows those who are contributing to Bharat, those who are enabling a sporting culture and a sporting lifestyle in Bharat, and getting more and more youngsters engaged in sport. How can there be a proper operating space for them? So how do we create the divide? So let's go straight across to our guest, Dr. Gulshan Rai, former National Cybersecurity Coordinator, Prime Minister's Office, Government of Bharat. With us, Ramesh Kailasam, founder, India Tech, is joining us. And we also have Hitesh Jain, Parinam Associates, joining us. Namaste and Jai Hind to all of you. Thank you very, very much. If I may ask you, Rameshji, to first elaborate and to also explain to our viewers, when we say gaming, there is a certain perception. Now, what is perception and what is reality? If you can address that.
Well, Anand, I think you started off on the right note. This is a fundamental thing that I've been trying to educate people on ground. When I meet mental health activists, when I meet NGOs, when I meet parents, when I meet gamers, that question that comes in is, they see what they see on TV, and the presumption is that is what it is. For example, I came across somebody in Chennai where they said, this kid has been playing this shooting game for hours together, and a particular fantasy gaming platform is to blame, which had no connection to it, just because you are known to hear some brands on television and so on. So the perception is always been that real money gaming is the culprit. The perception is that it's all gambling and betting. The perception is that your kid, which plays a shooting game, killing people online, is the game that is being peddled across as real money gaming, when fundamentally all of these are different. And when there was a discussion in Parliament, we had shot as India Tech a letter to the IT Minister then, actually elaborating on the different genres of games that exist, what is allowed where. I mean, for a simple example being that you had esports, you had fantasy, then you had casual gaming. In casual gaming, you had casual games which were replicating real world games. For example, you could play Carom online, but Carom also has a federation. You have chess online, and you also have the chess federation. So therefore, you had real world games which were replicating in the virtual world. You had real world games not recognized by federations being replicated in the virtual world. You had virtual world games like Candy Crush and Fruit Ninja and so on, which only exist in the virtual world. So there was this distinction. And then, of course, you had also the likes of rummy, poker, gambling, betting, and so on. Many of which in the first few categories have been cleared as games of skill by various court orders, including the Supreme Court. And therefore, the question that came in that time was that how would in this country, a sector which is growing so big, live through so many misconceptions? I have in the past had worked with various other sectors which suffered with similar misconceptions like direct selling and so on, which have traveled some distance now. But gaming also was going through the same churn. And the interesting part, which founders whom we work with very closely and investors as such, as India Tech, one of the questions that was often asked was that how many more churns do we get there and still will we be tarnished? Will we get a regulation for ourselves and still be beaten up by the other ministry? And that's an often trend that we get to see. Will the center clear it, but will we still be whacked by the states and so on? Because they have their own interpretation of different kind of games of skill, games of chance, and what they perceive as gambling and betting. So the question, therefore, that came in is, can we come with a national level framework for this? And this was pushed by further the fact that investors asked one interesting question. Does it mean that every gaming company we invest in will have to go through the churn of somebody questioning it and the court clearing it? Which means that today we have 20,000 plus games going on. Does it mean 20,000 cases in court to prove yourself that, look, I'm clean and I'm a game of skill, and still you can be charged by the states? So that is what led us to work closely with the center and various ministries to see if we can come with a national level framework which defines all of this, or at least creates a rules based approach. Now, we may not necessarily have, and you may have seen this in the case of OTTs, which went through the similar churn of questioning legitimacy and the content and so on, and now have a self-regulatory model which has come in. So I would stop at that, but that's a very valid question, that misconceptions will continue on, and it is for the government and the industry jointly to come with a framework that helps people also distinguish.
Hmm. Gulshan Raiji, how is it that a base of nearly 500 million viewers and there aren't checks and balances to sift those which are purely largely banking on skill versus those who are fly-by-night operators or those who are perhaps running these scams or these operations which are purely on chance, and then creating the kind of problems in society on startup. कहीं तो feedback from ground up is coming into the policymakers saying ये betting में परिवार बर्बाद कर दिए हैं. This is where it comes from. That all of this then get butched into that which breaks up society or breaks up families or bankrupts families. Your
So,
thoughts, sir?
so one aspect, Ramesh has said it. He dealt purely with the domain aspects there, the aspect which you wanted him to dwell on that. Let me argue that concept purely from technology point of view. Okay. Now the technology is innovations are taking at very high speed there. Today you have, tomorrow you have, after something you have, and we are all shifting toward the platform economy. Every sector of economy, education, defense, everything is moving on a platform-based kind of things there. And we are now dealing with convergence of technologies. We are not dealing with one technology. You talk about the IT or we are dealing with the convergence of technology. You have encryption, you have IT, you have a communication, and then you have emerging technologies built in over there. Now, this technology platform world over, because of the infusion of the AI and this kind of a technology, everybody says you regulate AI. And you cannot build a platform today without AI. You look at the financial sector, I mean, you know it better than me, that robotic process automation is the day. Every transactions in a capital market or a banking, they do the robotic process automation kind of a thing. So anyway, without getting into the betting or without into the game, there is a view worldwide, and worldwide governments are trying to do that they must regulate platform-based economy in a loose manner, which should benefit the public social development. At the same time, it should help the government to increase its market kind of a value or GDP. That's one aspect there. But if you look at there, now the games, we have been playing those games in a gully, mohalla, in community there, 4 or 5 people coming, physically trying to do that. That is still going on in spite of the ban and all kind of things there. But if you put that on the platform, see, in an online, ultimately, whether the government does or doesn't get, everything will shift to the platform there. It will shift there. And this is a much more different and requires a regulation in the sense that the viewers or the players can play from different parts of the location of the country, can play from different parts of the world there. Innovative new games can come up there. People don't know each other here and there. So there are chances of money laundering more. There are chances of other issues with the platform economy are more. It does require, it should be appropriately regulated there. If you regulate properly, the regulating model could be different, could be discussed there. But first, the need of regulation because of the emerging technologies, the devastating effect if we don't do that. I mean, you look at it there, the founder of the AI or founder of the windsurf is very aggressively saying you should regulate the internet there. I have gone through this. Ramesh is witness to that kind of issues I have gone through. I wrote the IT Act and I've gone through those kind of a thing. But today, it is everybody accept that there has to be a regulation. But the kind of a regulation need to be seen there. See, if you regulate, you can control. There are all gali mohallas, people are playing 4 or 5 people there. Okay. People know each other physically. Here, people don't know each other. Who's doing what, who's doing not there. Not only the issues are there, that the platform fellow can play mischief. The client on side also can play their own kind of things there. This will go on. It ultimately will go on. But if you regulate it, you can check it better. There will be a limited platform, centrally platform. You can get it better rather than going to gully mohallas and going to every street corner there. You can't regulate that. Families have been destroyed there also. There also, here also. But you have a better regulation. You can control the child. We may talk about all kind of a thing. You can have a better control. Rather than leaving it open, it will come. It will come. It has come. It is a worldwide phenomena. You cannot stop a technology.
So better than rather to adopt technology and then adapt ourselves, our own legal framework, so that we can better regulate it, rather than try and resist it or say turn a blind eye to it.
Internationally, Anand, internationally, everybody is trying to regulate AI. And this is the AI-based platform, AI-based ML platform. Everyone is trying to regulate the communication impact over there. This all.
See, at the end of the day, one of the arguments is it may be artificial intelligence, but somebody's coding it. So you can always put in safeguards there, which you can always put in, like they say, trip meters in the real world. You can put trips there, which can obviously say that thus beyond and no further. But let me just bring in Hitesh Jain. So Parinam ke shodh ka parinam kya hua? I should ask you that, because how do you decide what is a game of skill? Because even in cricket, actual cricket on ground, 99% is skill, 1% is still lady luck or chance. So is there a percentage where you would say that this falls under game of skill, because beyond a certain percentage the involvement? And how do we create a legal framework that encompasses all aspects, that is technology, the finance aspect, the KYC or identity aspect, where the money is going, the taxation aspect, all of this, because it's multi-layered, as Ramesh was saying, Hitesh.
And then navigating the current legal framework of online gaming in India is a complex task, because it is an intricate tapestry of both the central and the state legislation. You have state list, you have union list, concurrent list, and there is a much more room for ambiguity also. Having said that, our judicial system has made significant stride when it has in recognizing the legitimacy of skill-based games. So if you are aware, in the last 5 years, plenty of petitions have gone, whether it is a game of skill, game of chance. And as far as various online games are concerned, by and large, bearing few, the Supreme Courts have clearly given a clear finding as to what constitutes game of skill and how it is different from game of chance. As far as fantasy sports is concerned, the Supreme Court opined on the fantasy sport also that it is a game of skill and it is no longer res integra. That was the wording of the Supreme Court. But having said that, I mean, in spite of the Supreme Court verdict and all, what we need is a cohesive, streamlined regulatory approach. Now, to that extent, if you will see the definition of real money online game in the intermediate guidelines that were issued, that was a turning point. It gives some sort of a clarity. The intermediary guidelines also provides a solution where they have provided a three-tier approach. The three-tier approach, and then importantly, they have also provided a mechanism by the government. Now, there can be one debate that whether there should be a three-tier approach, as I mentioned in my report, or whether there should be a regulatory body that should be set up by the government only. So you have some sort of a ombudsman or someone who will look at the different kinds of the games and decide what is the game of skill and what constitutes betting. Perceptionally, if you will ask me, there is a very thin line again between a game of chance, game of skill. You have seen what happens in Mahadev and all. What happens is, even if the games are clear straight line games, but the bad actors, what they want to do is they want to mix all the betting and this thing with something which is going correct and then try to cloud the entire industry. What happens is the act of few bad actors cannot give the bad name to the entire industry. Having said that, the industry also looking at the perceptions regarding tax evasion, money laundering, and addiction, as mentioned by few speakers earlier. Industry will have to address all these concerns, not only from the regulatory point of view, but also from the perception point of view. It is very important that all these perceptions are addressed. So to that extent, we had suggested that there should be a code of ethics, and it should be implemented very strictly. So while the regulation will go hand in hand, but how the industry will self-regulate itself, how it will evolve a mechanism which is transparent, robust, which will address the concerns of tax evasion, money laundering, and addiction, will also play an important role when we decide what form of regulation will take the place. According to me, this is an evolving area. As far as technology is concerned, it is fluid. It is changing every 6 months. It is changing every second month. So can there be a straitjacket formula? I don't think so. But looking at the situation, the society, the regulations will have to be evolved. There will be certain principles. The principles will be very clear that, as I mentioned, strict KYC. It should not be a platform for money laundering. It should not be a platform for straight betting, because betting is illegal in India. So long as you are taking care of all these issues, and if you regulate, there will be no ambiguity, and you will have a sustainable growth in the online gaming sector.
One of the arguments is what is game of skill and what is game of chance. Now, for a lot of people in some states, rummy is a problem. But rummy is a game of skill. How is it a game of chance? There are money, right? And how do you regulate this? And especially when we're looking at fantasy sports, do you think calling them fantasy in itself is a problem? Because there are a huge number of youngsters who are involved. 200 million users, if my memory serves me right, is the latest data that says there's active engagement on certain platforms. Overall, about half a billion users, 500 million users. That's a lot of people. And how much money is riding on it, and how do we check this? So if you look at 3-tier models, Hitesh, I'm going to start with you, and then Ramesh ji and Gulshan ji, reverse comments. We have another 5-7 minutes, 10 minutes on the conversation. So explain this to me, Hitesh. What is a 3-tier model? How much will these bodies who are actually being bunched together with the nefarious elements who are largely riding on the game of chance and perhaps running these rackets, how will these bodies regulate themselves? What is a 3-tier model? And when does the government step in?
Well, I think in a 3-tier model, ideally, if you look at OTT, let me give you an example. What is happening in the case of OTT where the 3-tier model is there? First is the mechanism to deal with the complaints at the platform level. Then it is at the association level. And the third is the oversight mechanism by the government. Now, as you rightly mentioned, with so many players and with the line between game of skill, game of chance, possibility of betting, perception of money laundering. Now, it is very possible that every company will declare that their games are games of skill. Every association will say that this is a game of skill. And then under the game of skill, there can be a lot of problems. Now, this is the serious issues. Now, I think to deal with this problem, we have the Supreme Court principles that have clearly defined what are game of skill. The principles have been laid down by the court very clearly. So we have the guidance from the court. Second, in my view, insofar as real money online game is concerned, personally speaking, you will need a body which will be an element of the members of the who are of the online gaming industry, but it should also involve an oversight mechanism at the first level itself by the government authorities also, and few independent people. So there should be an independent body which will have no conflict of interest, which will really decide what will be the game of skill or what is the real money online game as opposed to the betting. It is very important because then only you can deal with the issue of perception. Otherwise, the perception is these people will form the association, they will declare themselves as a game of skill, and then under the game of skill, the betting and other activities will continue. This is the most important perception which needs to be addressed. And for that, both the industries have to first, as I mentioned, it is very important that you come with a code of ethics, which will encompass all the measures in which you can weed out all the bad actors. You can deal with the issues of tax evasion and money launderings are concerned. Put your house in order, then go to the regulatory authorities. You should also allow the room for independent people to participate in the body so that the issues of perception can be addressed. And then genuine real money, you have to weed out the real money online game from the betting aspects are concerned. and then the body will have the task. How the body will function, the decisions that will taken will determine the credibility of deciding what is real money online game and what is the as against the betting apps.
Hmm. Who belts the cat, Ramesh ji? Let me ask you this: Who belts the cat? And
Well, I think if you look at the OTT model, seems to have got some house in order and so on. But the question that comes here, as Hitesh rightly pointed out, is that if you look at the governance mechanism, and let's look at the scale of the problem today, you have close to 1,000 plus startups operating in the gaming space. You have more than 20,000 plus games that existed as of yesterday in the variant form. If the government were to take upon itself, and this was a question that we debated upon during the OTT times as well, that if the government were to put it through the censor board, it is their grandchildren who will be still clearing yesterday's content, because that's the quantum of content that is sitting there. And we have the same problem in gaming, where you have 20,000 plus variants already sitting as of yesterday. So does it mean that the government will have to set up a machinery looking game after game? There is no capacity there right now to do so. Neither are people in the market so much in availability who will be able to distinguish in the way we are. The fact that there are a very few bunch of people even understanding what the variants are, what the game of skill, game of chance arguments are. Therefore, you have a very limited kind of a bench strength available. And therefore, it becomes important that you follow a rules-based approach, which is prescribed by the government. You also have an SRB model, which has its nuts and bolts tightened, but loosened to the extent that it doesn't need everything to come to the government.